GE has always prided itself in supporting our products long after they've been removed from active production. I'm sure a number of you can point to GE products in your own plant that continue to stand the test of time and, with your care, operate just as they were intended and manufactured 30, 40, or even 50 years ago. Your MagnaBlast circuit breakers and switchgear are prime examples. It's in this effort to continue to support the best switchgear in the industry that we introduce the remote racking device. The remote racking device was developed exclusively for MagnaBlast switchgear and takes into consideration your familiarity with your existing equipment and its operation. Operation of the remote racking equipment is a simple, straightforward procedure designed to ensure your safety during the racking process. Prior to the start of this procedure, it must be noted that the remote racking solution does not take the place of proper familiarization and training with the GE switchgear and the wearing of the proper PPE, or personal protective equipment, as described in the latest NFPA 70E Standard for Electrical Safety in the Workplace document. Let's begin by starting with a typical breaker on the ground and out of its cubicle. Open the cubicle door. Roll the breaker into its cubicle. And finally, check that the breaker is completely in the cubicle against the stops. In order to raise the breaker from its down or disconnect position to its up connect position, we'll need to install the elevating motor. Turn the motor clutch to align it to the slide clutch. Take the elevating motor and place it on its motor mount position, assuring the bottom plate pins fall into their holes. Latch the motor in place using what is referred to as the suitcase latch. Then, plug the motor into its receptacle as shown. We're now ready to latch the clutch in place to prepare the motor for operation and raise the breaker. The clutch assembly is attached to what we call a positive interlock assembly. The positive interlock assembly is there, and has always been there, to make sure we can't raise the breaker when it is closed. If you attempt to pull the clutch assembly back and it will not move, check to make sure the breaker is open. If the breaker is open and the clutch still will not engage, check to assure the breaker is fully inserted. If the problem still exists, please contact your local GE service representative. Once the clutch assembly is latched in place, pull the clutch handle toward you and engage the slide clutch to the motor clutch. The mating parts should fully engage. Pull the motor securing pin from its base and insert it into the horizontal motor base hole. This will secure the clutch handle in place and allow you to release the handle. The motor is now ready to raise the breaker to its connect position. In order to raise the breaker to the connect position, you must first close and latch the cubicle door. Inspect the remote racking plug, cord, and pendant box for any signs of bent pins, fraying, or broken switches. If damage is discovered, repair any parts prior to using the unit. Check that the pendant control is in the following position. The raised lower switch is in the neutral or center position. The charge switch is in the off position. Lift the receptacle cover and insert the locking plug. The plug is keyed so that it may only be inserted one way. Once it is fully engaged, the plug will lock into place. Extend the flexible cord to a position away from the front of the cubicle. The cord allows you to be up to 30 feet away from the receptacle. Flip the raised lower switch to the raised position. The breaker should begin to rise as indicated by the standard red indicating light. When the red indicating light goes out, the elevating motor has stopped and the breaker should be in its connected position. Flip the switch back to its neutral position. The switch is indented to prevent the operator from going from the raised direction directly to the lower direction, so this should not be a concern. The breaker should now be in the connect position and open. The procedures we followed to this point are similar to your original operating procedure. All safety interlocks have remained the same. However, the added protection provided by the remote racking procedure ensures that in the unlikely event of an operational failure creating a fault, the operator is safely removed from the cubicle and less exposed to the danger. The interlock that was installed to prevent a closed breaker from being raised is the same interlock that prevents the breaker from closing until it is in the fully connected position. In order to continue with the procedure, we must release this interlock. To do so, open the breaker door and inspect the position of the breaker. The breaker should be in its completely racked up position. Pull down the clutch assembly to relieve the pressure on the retaining pin that has held it in place. Remove this retaining pin and release the clutch assembly. Nothing should occur if the charge switch has remained in its off position. If the breaker does begin to charge, the likely reason is that the charge switch on the pendant was placed or left in the charge position. While this will not affect typical operation, we have focused on removing any mechanical operation while the breaker door is open. Therefore, every precaution should be taken to ensure that the switch is kept in the off position. Continue to remove the motor from the breaker cubicle by disconnecting the motor plug from its receptacle. Release the suitcase latch, pull the motor from its mounted location, and place in a safe area away from the cubicle. Close and latch the cubicle door. Now that the breaker is up in its connect position and the positive interlock has been released, we're ready to charge the breaker. From the remote control pendant box, turn the charge switch from the off to the charge position. The breaker will now charge its springs, preparing it for a closing operation. Prior to closing any breaker, proper company procedures need to be followed. These procedures are the responsibility of the company operating the equipment. When the authorization is given, push the close push button. The breaker should close. If you do not have a close push button or choose not to close the breaker from this position, simply pull the remote pendant box plug from its receptacle. Turn the plug counterclockwise against its left stop to unlock it from its locked position. Then pull the plug from its socket. If the breaker was closed and the operator forgot to recharge it, when the plug is pulled and the spring-activated cover automatically returns to its normal position, a bypass switch will be activated and the breaker will automatically recharge. The procedures that follow provide a step-by-step procedure for lowering the breaker, taking you from a closed and connected position to an open and lowered position. Prior to opening the door to install the racking motor, it is important that the breaker be opened. This can be done in several ways. We have an optional open push button that may be used to open the breaker. If you, the customer, have chosen this option, get the proper authorization to open the breaker. Check the pendant box to assure the raise lower switch is in the neutral position. Plug in the pendant controller. Move away from the front of the cubicle. Push the open push button. You should hear the breaker open. After verification that the breaker is open the door to install the motor. Align the slide clutch to the motor clutch by rotating the motor clutch until it matches the slide clutch. Do a final verification that the breaker is open. Install the racking motor by sliding it into position as previously shown. Latch the motor in place using the suitcase latch. Plug in the motor. Pull the clutch handle back and lock into place using the retaining pin. If the clutch handle will not come back and engage the motor, please recheck to assure that the breaker is open. Close the cubicle door. At this point, you are ready to rack the breaker down. Move away from the breaker cubicle door to a safe distance. Flip the raise lower switch down to the lower position. The breaker should begin to lower as indicated by the motor running light on the pendant switch. When the breaker has reached its lowered position, the motor running light should turn off. This can take anywhere from 13 to 26 seconds, depending on the internal gear ratio of the elevating equipment. Remove the remote pendant box. Open the cubicle door to ensure the breaker is down. Once again, remove the elevating motor. This concludes our demonstration of the various procedures you will encounter when utilizing the remote racking system. These procedures are intended to take advantage of your familiarity with your existing equipment and its operation. They are designed to ensure your safety and the continued safe operation of the Magna Blast circuit breakers and switchgear. Thank you, and have a safe day.